Hello, everybody. Looks like we're live. How do we sound out there? Yeah, sorry. There was a redirect issue. That was my fault. So maybe we let some people filter in and uh, and make sure that everybody can actually find this thing. I'll post a link right now to my social to make sure that everybody's in here. But um, Amy's here. I got it. I got Amy. All right. I think we got a party. I think we got enough to get started now. Your audio is low. Let me turn up your audio a little bit. I can do that on my side.
Last week at that job,
There we go. You were
you
muted.
know?
You were muted. So that makes sense.
Oh, is that better, Amy? Hello, testing, testing. One, two, three. I love Amy. We don't need anyone else, just Amy, Eric. I'm happy. Still low?
Still low,
Let's
huh?
see.
Okay, let's bring you up a little bit.
Hey, your audio. There you go. She says, there you go.
Sweet. Peipei, thank you so much for taking time to talk with
Munchie, shut
with the
up.
audience and your dog too. It's great to hear from your dog again.
He's hype. He's really hype.
uh, I think one thing I like to start off with is what have you been watching lately?
Whoa. Okay, well, I just texted you the other night. I just saw on Netflix Furies, which is so funny because it's the name of my best friend's aerial performance crew, the Furies. And I saw that Veronica was in it and she directed it. If all you haven't seen her previous movie that she stars in 2019, it's called Fury. And I think this is either it might be a prequel, it might be after a sequel. I feel like it's a sequel. I don't know. But I just saw it randomly. I thought it was awesome. The three women in it were new action Vietnamese action stars I've never seen before. And I'm always really judgmental at first because I'm like, ooh, do I believe these women? They're beautiful, but and they're feminine looking, but do they move? Do they move with intent? Do they move with that soul, that fire, the execution? Is the camera hiding their action? And I would say I was very pleased. It reminded me of like some indie action that we've seen from some of our friends, yours included productions. And I guess Netflix came in and gave them money. Sorry for my voice, everybody. I was screaming last week, film fighting on set. But yeah, it was really dynamic action. There was basically these three. I don't want to give it away too much, but I really loved the way they designed the action. Unknown people. I don't know. I looked up the fight coordinator. He's done a bunch of things that I've never heard of him before, but he did a great job. The camera work was pretty dynamic too, and it looked like they moved along with the motion as well. They were very careful about showing what was going on. Nothing was too jarring. That's always like what I'm, concerned about because I think we've talked about this before in a lot of Hollywood TV shows that I've been on. I don't even like use the footage for my demo reel because it's shot so close and hand camera, and then sometimes like the cinema, the framing, like I'm on the side of the frame. What was the choreography? So what was cool about Furies is you can actually see what's going on. You can see the choreography. You can see all the different hits. They really took time to probably pre-visit. I would love to see the behind the scenes. I loved the performance of the three new girls and also Veronica. The story's gnarly.
Mm,
It's just it's so gnarly. It's just it gives a good reason for these women to be that angry
mm,
fighting and for you to want them to win. And I don't want to say it's typical because it's not totally typical in American cinema Hollywood yet, but it's the story of, you know, illegal sex trade, women going into illegal sex trade and trying to save other younger women, which is always very gratifying. And so if you haven't seen it yet, it's on Netflix. I'm excited to see if there's more. The three new girls that were the action stars in that. I'm excited to see more of them as well. The outfits, the club scenes, the neon lighting, like my neon lighting, there was a lot of that.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely
some stuff
has.
was
It kind of has the aesthetic of your apartment. That whole
yes,
movie.
yeah. And so I kind of appreciated that, you know. But also just the grittiness of being in Vietnam and um, very interesting.
Do
Yeah,
you? What do
so it
you?
captivated me.
What do you look for when you know? I guess what are you looking at when watching a female actioner like this? And when you're looking at performances, what do you see when you're looking at films like this? Or I guess what do you look for?
Yeah, so I I definitely look for, if we're going to get specific about the action, I definitely look for whether they're just moving with their arms and doing the choreo as opposed to really selling it within their entire body and using their dantian, their gut, their core power, and if they're moving from their hips and how much are they executing each of their strikes or kicks. Like there was a few good, really just front push kicks, blasting the way they shot it as well as the way it was executed. You really felt like it was strong. And I had my doubts at first of these women because I'm like, dang, these are skinny Asian girls, you know, just skinny Asian girls. Like, I don't know. I'm always like, because I have seen a bunch. I won't name any right now, but I have seen some Asian cinema of fighting where when the girl's really skinny and she's weak and she's just doing the choreo and amazing stuntmen are flying everywhere, I kind of look away or I don't. I'm not captivated, but I was really taking my time to watch, and I felt like they were really executing with time. They were doing it with force. They were animating. They were taking hits and reactions too. Their acting on top of it was on point. I never saw them like fall out of those characters. The fear, but also the strength and the power and the anger in all of their hits. There was maybe like one kick, one like roundhouse that I was like, I didn't believe that one.
Hmm.
But the stuntmen were all great that helped it. So I'm looking at that too. But really, I'm really like nitpicking these girls because obviously I'm like, I like to look at Amy who delivers. She delivers her punches and kicks, and she like moves from her soul. So I'm comparing a lot of women to people like Amy or like Mickey Fashionello. Um, or Moon Lee, like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
I
yeah, of
watched
course.
that fight.
Yeah.
Oh my God, for sure, by far one of the best female fights. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I see.
The
Extension.
the bar is set pretty high, unfortunately, for female action stars
Is it for
because
guys too? Because I feel like a
yeah,
lot of guys might not care as much as me and
well,
Amy might
I
care, you
think
know?
so. Well, um, yeah, because when I watch a Hong Kong female action star, uh, I don't know if there's something that's just more connected about how they move. They look very trained. That helps. But
Yeah,
even women who came from dance, like I think Michelle Yeoh came from dance originally,
yes, she did.
and you see her in a Samo. I think it was like 1984. She's not doing any action, and then she starts doing more and more action. Then suddenly, like 1986, she's with Corey Yun, and she doesn't look like a dancer. She just looks like someone who can fight. So I don't know what exactly the formula was there. I don't know if it's just you have these freaks and they're the ones that kind of make it, like Michelle Yeoh, for example, or if you just have really
Donnie
good
Yen.
Donnie Yen. But with anybody really who goes from untrained to suddenly trained, Joyce Godenzi being another one. I think Moon Lee came from dance too.
She did. Well,
I think
that's
so. I
amazing.
think so.
I believe it.
But the fact check me, but I don't know what the process is, right? Because there is this process of going from untrained to trained, and within that process, in Hong Kong, it's heavily reliant upon the action designer and the camera team and editorial to make sure that everything settles, and they sort of like will cater camera and edit to make sure that everything is high impact. It looks really good. in America, sometimes they you know, our emphasis tends to be like train the actress. Like Charlize Theron, you train her, you train her, and you hide almost nothing now. So
Yeah, John Wick.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, so when, but you know, these are also the differences that you're going from this Hong Kong style of movement, which is very pristine, to a much more gritty style of movement, which I think Fury's is a little bit more gritty. But like you said,
Yeah,
when she throws a
definitely.
roundhouse kick, it kind of falls apart for a second. So when you so anyway, that all that's to say, like, do you think that sometimes we got spoiled with Hong Kong cinema, or do you think no, now we're just in a different kind of action stage, and we need to, you know, accept that and accept this new sort of movement style from action heroes and female action heroes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's hot now is like even I don't know if I can say. Yeah, I can say that
Are you
I've been
sure?
asked to. Yeah, I think so. How about this? I'll generalize it. It's not the first time I've been asked to either make up choreo or perform choreo like John Wick. So what does that mean to the world? They're calling it gun fu, I think also. And then mix of MMA, a lot of judo, jujitsu takedowns mixed with just raw brawling. Like nothing. I mean, yeah, I did wushu a long time ago in kung fu, but pretty much every fight job I've ever done in Hollywood is always asking for raw brawl, gnarly stuff. So, except yeah, we were spoiled by HK fighting. What's cool about HK fighting, you know, is like all the stuff that you've already done action talks about and video essays. So good. It's so good. It is messy. It is raw sometimes, you know, but I think, yeah, with Furies, it being a little more gritty and being just a little more sloppy is acceptable, you know, and not always having perfect form, but having perfect form mixing with being messy and sloppy is what the art is.
Hmm.
And, you know, what is the film fighting art and animating yourself in that way, which is what I love to study to do. And what the last couple years, I feel like I've been studying ever since I got out of the wushu fighting Kung Fu Wing Chun fights that I did in the beginning with Sean Charney or whoever. Um, so that raw feeling, the messiness, but still controlled and still dynamic with some sort of form, you know, is it is it's what you and Dennis have mastered. I feel like you and your crew, a long time ago, you guys have mastered this. It's pretty
Well,
awesome. I
I
haven't
didn't
seen a crew
master
like
that.
you
I'm
guys.
just really bad at fighting, and I end up looking like a raw martial artist. So it kind of worked out for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think the dancing, like, you know, dancing. So that idea of like quote unquote being bad, but also, you know, having TKD under your belt is is not, it doesn't look bad for film fighting. This is what we want to see. We want, it makes it more real. Like what's so cool about seeing a lot, I watch a lot of your stuff and a lot of your stuff, it is choreographed, but a lot of it looks like you guys are just like wailing sometimes, which is realistic in a real fight. You just be like trying to, you know, punch out somebody.
You
Um,
you've been in the business
so
for a minute. Um, do you remember a time when you started to see that shift happen around you? You're going from these wushu fights with Sean Charney, which I still love. I still love that stuff, and I always wait for a new Sean
love
Charney
it so
video.
much.
I love
Yeah.
that stuff, and I have a heart for it. And there's this like golden
I miss
era.
it.
Yeah, there's this golden era between like '04 and '08 that I love this, and
Yeah.
it's so obscure and niche, but I don't care. Do you remember a
Yeah.
moment where you saw that shift happening around you, either in movies you were watching or in your professional life?
Well, like, okay, so already by the time in 2005, when I first started hustling and training with Real Kick, the I think the first, I don't even want to show it, but the first film fight I did was The Matrix Revelations with Tim Storms. I was a terrible fighter and I was coming from a wushu background, but it was okay that we were making that. So, and then, and I also did some fight in Chinatown with a straight sword versus nunchucks was okay. But um, I think the raw immediately um, as I started training to be a film fighter in Hollywood, I feel like they were already asking. everybody, not everyone, that was what was hype, was the raw brawl style stuff, mixing all the MMA styles, TKD, Tang Soo Do, everything, karate together with boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Um, I never got asked. I'm trying to think. Never got asked the entire career. I never did a legit kung fu fight in Hollywood. I think the only people who got to do that were people who worked on like Iron Fist and maybe even Shang-Chi, you know what I mean? But as far as like the majority of jobs, it was mostly raw brawl fighting that I can remember. Oh, wait, Amy and I got to do a little bit. You know what? Last year, 2 years ago, Amy and I got to do a job called The Girl in the Woods is a TV show, and she choreographed a lot of it, and I helped her with a little bit of knife fighting. So we put some wushu stuff in there, kung fu stuff, and we had a fight with staffs too. So she made a staff fight, which was pretty wushu kung fu style. And that was so fun because that was like what, that was 2 years ago. So the entire career and then just that job for me was the only time I got to do stylized stuff. I love it. It's really fun because you still have to animate yourself. You still have to make it look not so like clean and strict in like a form. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah,
Isn't that
I
funny
don't, I
where
think it's always
you'll go and you'll do these very intricate martial art fight scenes and in my case I was doing action comedies and people would come to me after I did contour and undercut people would come to me and say, man, you're really funny, you have these
so funny.
nice movements, I want you to play an assassin who's depressed and just shoots everybody. And it's
Yes,
like
yes,
it's almost like, okay, you have this martial arts foundation. Okay, now you're gonna
yeah.
do this thing instead that has nothing to do with any of that. Like maybe do you
Oh my
think that
God.
what skills for you translate from your martial arts into this dirty fighting?
Breakdancing, because and like that is the whole it's the whole acting thing because to be asked to do a raw brawl like you I honestly feel like a lot of it is the acting too, within your body and breaking because I was in the ghetto learning these moves like literally in the projects of New York with just the kids learning breaking there in the hood, going to the clubs, just being around a lot of just hoodlums in New York City. And then battling boys, battling girls. Like people came at me hard like 26 years ago. Wow, 26 years ago. Man, when I went to Florida for B-Boy Pro-Ams, this crew called the Floor Angels, Beta, B-Girl Beta, I'll never forget her, and the Floor Angels. She is amazing. If you guys ever have a chance to look up the rawest B-Girl who has like she put me on my toes. And when I first started breaking, I was just kind of timid. I came from whatever gymnastics, springboard diving, dance, jazz dance, hip hop dance. And she came at me so hard. She's like pointing at me, swearing at me, throwing gang signs at me, just being like, you're dead. And to experience that in the beginning of my breaking career just really, and that wasn't the last time. There was many times when I'd get called out from like European B girls. Oh my God, this French B girl, B biche. Wow, she was like just all mean mug, and it hardened me. And then battling with Asia One in LA when I moved out here in 2000, being part of No Easy Props crew and like being around all these hard ass B boys who just my crew, also the Assassins at the time, they came from Linwood down in Southgate. If you guys don't know where Southgate is, but that's like near Watts. If you don't know where that is, look that up. I hung out with the Assassins crew and they were all hard asses too. So I became a hard ass to a point where people would battle me, they'd be scared because I would also I would talk shit to and like degrade them to a point where they're falling. Like because I knew sometimes I couldn't throw air flares. And so I'd just come and I'd battle. I'd throw my stuff clean, but I'd come with an attitude and all the top rocks dance on the beat and then just have this attitude that shook them. Like there was a couple battles when guys like clearly they could do better air flares and windmills and power moves and gain the crowd, but he didn't know the music, he didn't know how to dance, and he didn't know how to execute and burn towards me. So that I think that is huge towards helping with the film fighting is to not be afraid to be aggressive and put your energy and the acting towards an opponent without actually hurting them. Because in breakdancing, you're not supposed to touch anybody or hurt anybody. But we do the battle rockings, right? And that's all like very aggressive motions that was built into me for years before I started to film fight. That definitely helps. But also choreography. Learning dance choreography is different than battling and breakdancing. Learning dance choreography has helped with keeping the sequence of what's coming next. Also, getting hit by actors has trained me.
Sure, of course,
Yeah,
as it would. Now, when it kind of sounds like sparring when you're talking about
yeah,
breaking like this,
definitely.
and I remember doing Hapkido at Dennis's school for a couple of years, and the Hapkido training is one thing, but we would do sparring night every Wednesday, and random people, not random, we'd check them before they came in, but like people from different martial arts schools would just come on Wednesdays to spar. So we get Kyokushin guys, we get some like point sparring guys, we get a Wing Chun guy come in one time, and it helped us to kind of like it doesn't just help with fighting and distancing, like you said, it's almost like it helps with acting and I guess you'd
Yeah,
call it
the
presence.
intent, your presence, the aura, the soul, you know, your intent. What are you doing when you're not just throwing a punch, What are you thinking? Are you choking him? Are you choking to kill him or just choking to play with him? Are
Mm,
you messing with him? Are you tapping him? Are you really trying to hurt him or just keep him on check, Like all those things. And it's playful and it's a dialogue, it's a nonverbal dialogue. Same with film fighting, just like when you battle someone, the freestyle of it too is like I think it's like sparring too when you're going rounds with someone, answering to what he has. That and contact improv dancing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that too. That's another like very contact improv, like kind of jujitsu, swing dancing. It's all about answering what you're feeling and what are you feeling from the lead.
right. This is interesting because you, when you look at MMA fighters, for example, transitioning into doing films, they don't always make great fighters because sometimes making the shapes and whatnot can be a little bit foreign to MMA, and even memorizing movements and pretending that uh, you're pretending that you're in a fight and reacting to punches. That's very foreign to MMA, but the acting that they bring a lot of the time is actually pretty top notch because they understand
Yeah.
that game. And so
Yes,
maybe that's kind of related to what you're talking about.
for sure. And taking the time where it's not just movements, you know, taking the breaks. I like the pauses. I like when fights break apart. And there's like a lot of yours. There's moments. The one that I just saw 2 days ago that I'm like, oh, it's so good is the toilet sensor. If you guys haven't seen the toilet sensor scene, just go look it up again. That is to me, that is like the epitome of the type of things that I want to make. Is there's layers upon just yeah, there's fighting, but the layers of like what's going on underneath it was just that's so good. It's so good,
No,
and there's time, and then
I love
you
hearing
know
that your favorite thing that I made was literally a piece of toilet humor. I think that's great.
no, because the
Yeah,
toilet sensor fight.
yeah.
Toilet sensor fight. So there's it's not just a straight fight. There's like stuff going you guys gotta go see. I don't want to ruin it for you out there, but if you haven't seen it, type in toilet sensor fight from Death Grip. So good.
Yeah, those
So good.
it is those moments of not fighting actually. I think
Yeah.
when
The in
the
betweens.
in betweens when a lot of the time stunt performers they fall apart because sometimes we don't really have the experience of actually doing the crap that we're pretending to do. And if you don't have that, then you don't know how to just stand there and read somebody or give a
Yes.
false reading. So I highly encourage people to go out and fight a lot more, or at least break dance. Um,
Yes. And take acting classes if you're
yeah,
uncomfortable with those moments of your tight shots. Because I do like the tight shot. I like the inserts of a fight, like the moments in between. Nessa, is it Nessa? Your character was
Ness,
it called Ness?
Ness.
Ness. The he there's just moments where it just cuts to you and you're like
I think I was
and you
watching.
just
I think I was watching a lot of Beat Takeshi when I made that movie.
oh god, but I love that. I love that. That's what I want to make. I'll take note of that for when me and Amy finish our short is the moments of you just being like you just it's just the shot of you tight and you're like you just blink or you like kind of go and it's so good. It adds so much.
Well,
So good. So I love those
oh,
moments.
thank you. I mean, I always cite Beat Takeshi because he seems to be able to really convey intent with minimal movement. It's almost like
Yes,
it's
that's
almost
what you were just still.
Kubrick in a
So
way.
still.
Yeah. Amy's got a question.
Oh
Pei,
yeah, yeah, I see.
Pei, do you think current female action-led films are on the same level as current male-led action films? If not, what do you think is missing from your opinion?
Such a damn good question, Amy. Um, I just a precursor. Amy is my friend, but like, let's say if she was not my friend, she would still be my favorite film fighter. And
And you would hate
she
her
is,
for it. You would utterly hate
I
her for
would,
being so
I
good.
would be like, yeah, I want to fight her. Anyways, but like, she is epic because she's an actress too. And she's a very good film fighter and a very good actress together. And that's what is to me, obviously, in America. She's saying current female, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like American film, action films. That's what bothers me a lot is we know because we work in the industry, a lot of them are being doubled or a lot of them are training, but they don't, we can always tell when it's a little off, or when they're just not strong enough. And Amy is like, she's really strong, and you can tell when she's blasting, you are going to get blast. But to work with her too, it's like butter. It's pretty amazing because she's really on point. She's really sharp, but she looks crazy. Like she looks crazy. Like she very dynamic. So that's what's missing, I think, in a lot of female lead actresses now is like they are spending a lot of time acting, so they just don't have time to study as much martial arts or film fighting specifically. And everybody wants to be a fighter. I mean, every actress I've spoken to, they want to be film fighting, but they don't understand that training martial arts is different than training film fighting. You know, having time to like shoot those scenes, to go over with the dance, actually fighting with someone, actually connecting with someone. Those it takes so much time. I'm still learning. I will forever be learning how to make things sell better without hurting the actor. And I think sometimes female lead actors maybe they don't understand about those being messy, about animating their body because that's a whole training. It's a whole dance. It's a whole body connection and a body understanding of isolations as well. And that just takes time. Um, Obviously the ones who are studying, like Gina, she's a lot better. She's coming from an MMA background and she's been doing more film fighting, and so it's looking pretty awesome to me. um
What do
these
you
three Vietnamese girls, though, you guys got to look them up.
what
I
what do
can't
you,
even pronounce their names.
what do you yeah, I wouldn't try. What do you think? I mean, what in your mind? Uh, like, how do you make a? What am I trying to ask? Like, what do you think makes a great female action film? Is it performance? Is it story? Where do you think it falls apart? And what can we do?
You know what's funny too? It's so whack that I never finished the bad ones. You know what I mean? But like, I'll be scrolling. There's so many online now, that are old or kind of new, and I usually when I start watching and I'm so judgmental, but the
No,
minute I
do
see
it. Be
the first
judgmental,
fight,
please.
if I see their first like punches and kicks and it's like their delivery, but the stuntmen are good, I can't finish watching. So I can't even tell you which one's the bad ones because I usually quickly click away. And that's why Furies is interesting to me because I was already going into a judgmental, like, oh, am I gonna watch this? And then I just couldn't stop watching. It was disturbing at first, terribly disturbing. But then as I started watching, I'm like, oh shoot, this is good. This is good. So yeah, I think it throws me off too. And also some when the character just looks like the whole skinny thing really bothers me. It just really does. You can be skinny, but if you move like those girls in Furies, then I'm okay. But when I see already like very skinny actress and she's about to kill 10 of these big dudes, I'm like, if you can't even move right, I'm not going to watch anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're moving like dynamically with the animation and you're taking some hits too and you're being raw and you're delivering, I'll watch it,
I mean,
which is what happened with Furies. But I haven't found one other than Furies. I can't name off other than Moon Lee and them.
yeah.
Trying to think of some other current. I feel like there was something. Oh, so the whole kunoichi thing, right? I had a dance crew named Kunoichis, this female ninja, and even with Vlad, Dragon Lady, he wanted to make a whole kunoichi thing at some point, but we all got busy working. Um, and I looked up kunoichi, and there's a couple of kunoichi movies. Can't tell you anything about them. I don't know if they're good. Somebody put a link for me and show me a fight scene where there is a TV series or movie called Kunichi that is a good fight. Because I looked, I was like hoping, And then I've also seen a couple where there's like Samurai Girl, and I still haven't. I don't know. Somebody send me a link because I still haven't seen a really solid Samurai Girl out there who kills it.
Hmm. I'll recommend one. It's
Okay,
Uzumasa Limelight. It's a great movie, and it's got a female lead, and it's about making a movie. And this old
okay,
stuntman trains a female pop star to be a martial art lead in a movie. She's actually very good. Recommend that one.
awesome,
Uh, I,
awesome.
the you're talking about the skinny thing, and um, I know some skinny people who are really strong, and I know some
Yeah,
muscular people who are really weak.
yes, there's
It's
that too.
it's technique, right? Like
Totally.
strength. In my opinion, strength is a skill, not a size. So it is
I agree. I agree.
it's technique, but there is a skinniness that sort of exhibits very fragility, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
and kind of being disconnected. But do you think also, first of all, there's probably a selection process for choosing
I
that
get
kind of
it.
body type over another, right?
I get it too.
It's true in America. It's true in Asia. Um,
Everywhere.
it's true everywhere. Do you think that there is also
Which is
maybe?
like why I love Gina because she's
Yeah,
thick and
yeah,
she looks
totally,
good to me.
totally. And nobody's gonna tell her otherwise.
No,
It's like this is
no, she looks amazing.
yeah. Do you think that there might also be pressure on female stars to not be messy? And where do you think that pressure
Ooh.
might come from? Do you think it comes from them or from somewhere else?
Yeah, for instance, the man, I don't even know her name, but the Asian actress in John Wick, I think she was, you know, she's new. I don't know. I've never known of her before this, but she definitely had to be clean, right, to execute what it's so unmemorable right now. Sorry to say, but I'd have to watch those scenes again. But what I do remember was like, okay, the choreography to me was awesome. Like whoever made the choreography, it's dynamic, it's Hollywood, it's exciting for the crowd that wants to see it. But and she just had to be clean. So she was, I feel like she was made to look good, and that's awesome. She was acrobatic, and the stunt double was very acrobatic, but I think in the back of my head, I would love to see her in a raw bra to see how she does. And I feel like the stuntman look made her look good. The choreographer made her look good. I need to watch it again before I talk too much crap. But um, yeah, maybe they're told to be clean because they're assassins, you know. But I think with like real assassins and for the film fighting excitement, being a little dirty and gnarly and messy around it is what creates the excitement in it. Because if you're too clean and then all these people are taking wrecks, I don't know. It's not as exciting to me as a raw brawl.
I mean, there's if you're gonna go down the path of so the way I describe John Wick 4 now is Greek sculpture. It's Greek
Mm,
sculpture. It's perfectly sculpted, and you don't want to see the sculpture before it's perfect. And nobody's going to show
yeah.
you the sculpture before it's perfect. So
Uh,
the lighting, the camera, the posing, everything is perfect. If you then go down the more Furies line, and maybe even the
yeah.
raid, maybe the raid also would count in
The
this.
raid. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of kind of slipping around. Um, Now it's not slipping around as if you are improvising necessarily, but I think that Gareth was okay with slop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it totally worked, right? And
Like contour.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, that's just me being bad at fighting. But yeah, no,
No, it
it's
was everybody though.
I
If
know
you look at
everybody's
all
doing it.
your
Yeah, everybody's doing
dude,
it
your whole
because
it was so cool. It looked like
yeah,
frantic crazy, but it was dope.
but
It looks real.
that's a different mode. So
It is a
when you
different
want
mode.
to introduce, okay, so you have your, let's say you're a director and you're making a female action led film. Um, and you're in a room with producers and writers and whatnot, and you're trying to figure out what this thing is going to be, how it's physically going to be. Are we going to do John Wick and kind of like Marvel, very kind of Greek,
That's what everyone's asking for
right?
though.
That's the
John Wick
that's the
style.
kind of like you would call it Apollonian style, right? Where it's very kind of perfect
Mm-mm.
and posy. Or are we kind of going toward this more sloppy, okay with all of this, grime, gray area, um, slipping around and allowing mistakes? It's kind of like, I hate to go Nietzsche on everybody. It's the more Dionysian version of it, right? Where it's more folk, it's dirty.
Free, yeah.
Yeah, and so when you go in that direction, there's like a different kind of physical requirement where you have to be okay with improvising. You have to be okay with looking stupid because
Yeah.
sometimes that makes you look great. And
Yes.
this is thing.
That's you. That's you.
These are things
That's what I feel
that
about you.
comedians and court jesters have figured out over the past 5,000 years. Where sometimes the dumber you look, the better everyone else looks, and that makes you look good too. You know,
Yeah.
and that kind of slop. And so that's just like that's going to be a stylistic choice. And I would argue that you shouldn't be somewhere in the middle because then people are trying to figure out like, am I looking at Greek sculpture or am I looking at just like grime, right? And when you set it
Yeah.
up at the beginning, when you set it up with the Oni Hotel in John Wick with the perfect lighting and people playing taiko drums, it's this. It's going to be this. And if you deviate from that, people are going to go, wait a minute, I thought I was in this museum over here. This one, you start off with grime, you start off dirty, and then when people start moving that certain way, it's that. That's all I have to say on that.
um, I was thinking about like the whole girls being clean too, and like that's the other thing I think Amy, to answer Amy's too, is that I'm trying I can't think of a mainstream female action lead who moves with like sloppy but
Mm-hmm.
controlled but like raw.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it who fights like that of what what we've all been trying in indie filmmaking, what we've been trying to do. And I think it's right because most of them are heroes, so they're just meant to do these things, and all the stunt guys wreck around them. Which is why I feel like what makes Amy. I'll just talk about Amy. It's a good example. What makes her a good film fighter all around is that she's taken Rex and she's taken reactions, a lot of them, and learning how to animate around that and putting the in betweens where the egg moments is so important. And I feel like a lot of that takes time to train as well, time and experience. More so experience because you can't just keep training film fighting. You have to actually do it. You have to be training the film fighting choreography, and then you have to actually be in a production where you see what it looks like. They shoot you. You go look at camera, and you're like, "Wow, I'm just standing there in between those two bunches. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing between that punch and that kick?" And that is something that comes with time too. Because even I'm going to forever be training that because even today, like when I think that I'm okay and I go look at playback, I'm like, whoa, I was a little eggy there. We call egg when you're just standing there in between movements and you're like waiting for the next thing or whatever it is. Or just like you were talking about in your action essays, how, they duck before they really should be ducking. So practicing those moments, you learn the choreo first, you get that in your body, and then you add in the in betweens, like, I'm going to wait half a second more before I actually duck because I'm going to let him begin to swing and then duck. So that makes it even more near miss scary. How much do you duck to? Do we like it when you're ducking too far and then the swing is like way, we call it rainbowing over the head? So you're just kind of slipping sometimes and like, ooh, you almost got punched. Like those little things, the dance that you practice with your partner, it's like, it's so important the two people, and it can't just be like one person's really good at film fighting, because if the other one is not good at reactions and not good at filling in the egg, it's, you can see it. You're only as strong as your weakest partner. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why it's great for me. I fought Amy for the first time 2 years ago. I'd seen her for years, and wow, to make choreo with her, we could make it up so fast. We had to make all this choreo up in a short amount of time for this TV short, and it was so easy because she'd be like, "Okay, come at me for 4 strikes or 8 strikes or whatever." She'd always have some sort of creative answer to it, and then she would come at me, and I would have some sort of my own version of defending to it. This was this knife fight we did, and I will post. We came and shot it in my house and made another short. I will post that soon, but that's what's beautiful. It's like having a good partner, because making the choreo is only step one, which can take forever sometimes. But if you have two people who understand the language, understand martial arts, understand the ins and outs, the transitions, the meaning behind strikes, kicks, whatever, sweeps, ducks, parries, all of that, then it comes together faster. And then actually performing it is a whole nother training of being on set. And she's clearly done so many fights that when we actually shot, it went really well. Like, we would have hard times. We're still trying to pick the best shots from this something we shot a year ago. We still haven't picked the best shots because there's a lot of takes that we like. Yeah. And then the camera, obviously. Camera
Yeah.
is a choreographed piece too.
I was gonna ask. Speaking of camera, you're talking about how you add in phrases, how you add in almost like little statements within the action. You're sort of building these blocks as you go take by take, right? Or throughout the rehearsal. How do you watch yourself? And when you look at yourself move, are you critical?
Everything. Oh yeah. And it's not just because of me, it's because I want to make the other person look good. So when I'm fighting someone as good as Amy and she punches me, and if I don't react properly, I don't like it. That's what I'm looking for when I look back at a take. I'm looking at myself to see, and then later on I'll look at her too. I look at the whole picture, but I look to see if, like, when I blocked her, did it look like I made her look strong? Was my block just like stiff and straight and clean? Or did I block her and make it look like she hit me and it hurt, and then the block was like, that was a big force. Those are the things I look for. Did she hit me in the stomach, and did I react to it enough where it like looked like it hurt? Those are the things. And also, when I punched her, did I pull my punch? Did I punch too high over her head? Did I rainbow, like when you're supposed to punch right at the head, and then you punch too high because you're trying to, like, because you don't trust that she's going to duck.
Hmm.
Like, hence, always a good partner. I mean, that's what you and Dennis had. You had beautiful chemistry and knowledge and comfortability fighting with each other. So it looked really dangerous and real and scary. And you look like you're hurting each other too.
Right. Well, what you're talking about when, not just talking about like good, dangerous looking fighting, but also that slop. Do you
Oh
think
yeah.
that? Do you think that that slop? It might be choreographed. It might not be. But if it's in the moment, you recover from it and you keep going.
Yes.
How much of that comes from memorizing the choreography versus training and understanding how slop kind of just works into things in general in life? You got to figure out a way out of it.
That's a great question, because yeah, like, that's falling with style. That's actually breakdancing, because you are constantly, when you're in a battle or even in a cipher in a club, which is a whole nother training from training battling, you are constantly, and I just did hours of throwing down in a club, doing club ciphers and club battles. And that is like, I think falling with style is like all of it. You're constantly making mistakes. You're constantly not perfect. You're constantly trying to hit a beat, but also execute a move, and also do transitions. And you're constantly messing up. So what do you do in between to recover and make it look like you're not messed up? Um, with training the actual choreography and then putting slop in between that, for me, I feel that I can't fully put the slop until I have the choreo down smack in my head, so that I don't mess it up the other person, which it happens anyway. So with even Amy and I, we'll sometimes like all mess up, and but then to like get around it, we always recover. And then when we watch playback, we're like, oh shit, that worked. Like one of us might have done the wrong choreo, but like, be training your brain to be ready for that, is a whole practice as well. And that's part of sparring too. I think if you've sparred a lot, it helps to be ready for like, oh shit, you just threw me a punch, but you weren't supposed to do that, but I'm going to throw my hand up and swat it away. I mean, how many times has that happened,
Oh,
right?
constantly like that. I mean, I could tell you the
Constantly.
number of
So,
times when because Dennis and I would spar. That was one of the things that made us tick back then. Because
yeah.
we were starting to, and we would, we sparred with everybody. Everybody would spar on sparring nights, and there were so many times where Dennis and I would end up blasting each other on accident on camera, and or on a live show, and you keep going. You act like it
Yeah.
didn't happen because it wasn't in
Yeah.
the
Oh
choreography.
God. Yes. So funny. So, and then like I like putting in breaks. So Amy and I gotta post this soon. It's done. Sean finished doing the editing for us, but there's a moment where we fight with the knives, like kitchen knives. We break a cart part, and then we kind of walk around each other and look at each other, right? And it just there was some funny shit that would go down, and so our break apart moment, we'd be like on the verge of laughing, and so like I would just put it into the acting and then just go at it again and we would just die laughing. So there's a really good outtake of that in this upcoming knife fight. I promise to put it out like next week or something. But yeah, you just have with the acting wise, you just have to go with the flow. Just like wow, you got slapped. So, recently I did a lightsaber fight with William at a wedding and full on whacked in the head, but just kept going through that as well. Recently I spinning hook, I kept telling this kind of newer guy, he's not really a fighter, but oh my gosh, for 10 minutes I said, please give me space, I'm already at the back of where I can move. So after you back fist, take a step back and add your in between, and then I'm going to come with a spinning hook. And every time I kept having to pull my kick. So the day of, at the moment, sure enough, he got whacked right in the face. Great thing is it sold and he did the reaction, and it was a loud noise. But I felt bad, but he was okay, thank God. But this happens all the time, so we just kept going. Like it was awesome. I was like, oh, and I just kept going through. Also, stunts, even when you're wrecking and then you go the wrong direction, you have to just always have the mindset of like, keep going, keep going. Like I like how you said this recently in an action essay, like after you do a wreck, the person's not just dead, right?
Yeah,
Like sometimes people do stunts and they'll get hit, they're on the ground just passed out, and you're like, nah, you wouldn't. Your adrenaline would really, you'd be like, you'd be hit, but you could try to get it together.
yeah,
That's another training, because I feel like some new stunt people might not know that as well. They'll do a stunt and just be like act dead, and you're like, no, 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 you wouldn't actually be dead.
yeah,
You'd be
yeah.
so hype.
Or you get clocked in the face and you do front like Arabian onto your back or something, and then you're holding your back. It's like, no man, this is where it hurt. This is where it
Yeah,
hurt. The Arabian did not hurt you. I've seen
yeah,
I've seen grown
the
old
face
people
hit,
get
yeah.
hit with a golf ball and they fall on cobblestones, and it's the golf ball and they sit right up.
They don't care about the wreck.
The
Yeah,
wreck
you're
does
right.
not
You're so
matter.
right. You're
And
so right.
and I mean, if it's every fight, and the second somebody hits the concrete, they are getting up if they can. If they can't,
Yeah,
then you act that. That happens all the time when we're doing video games. And I always ask, like when we're doing motion capture on games, hey, when this character hits the ground, how long do they need to be there before they get up? What do you want them doing? Do you need a loop? And it
love
makes them
it.
it makes them think so that it doesn't fall into the cliche territory of my back right. It's like this very cliche thing that we all, because we saw all that in Hong Kong and it worked, but there's something where when we do it, it doesn't work. It just doesn't translate right, so we have to update it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing for me to keep in mind, because I think last week I might have, because the stunt went the wrong way on the second take and I was confused, so I kind of like didn't do the thing where I was supposed to get up and be like, oh, I was like, oh shit, I went the wrong way. I wrecked on a table and the table fell towards the guy instead of away. And so like my action was not right. They're not going to use that take, but my instinct was not trained to just move out of it. I was more concerned with, oh shit, I fell towards the actor and I fell towards where there's no pads and all the breakaways went this way and it's going to ruin continuity. That's not my job to worry about those things, but because I'm a filmmaker, sometimes I get distracted by the details that I'm not supposed to be worried about
It's
when
hard.
you're hired to be just a film fighter on set.
Yeah, it's hard to wear director's hat and a performer's hat. You could not
Yeah,
be on further ends of the spectrum. Um,
totally.
unless you're thinking about also scheduling and catering, and you're trying to do a reaction, that's pretty far on the spectrum too. That gets really difficult.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
do enjoy, I'm very grateful though when a director or somebody, a fight coordinator or somebody, these people I worked with recently, they were very respectful and nice. And they asked me, I was just doing a simple judo throw. And they're like, where would you shoot this? And I looked around like kind of awkward, like, oh, you're asking me? They're like, yeah, we saw your demo reel. We know you know how to shoot this. And so I
wow,
was
that's
like, all right.
great.
And the DP, yeah, the DP's right there. And I just humbly was like, okay, I would do it down here.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it was cool.
Uh,
Um,
Another question: Silvani Magnavo or Magnavo? I'm not sure. I assume you're Italian. Sweet mismatched couples tribute pay. Thanks for that. Any other breakdancing slash Hong Kong action influences that influenced your style?
oh, is he asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. I mean, everything, all the good stuff, all the great HK films. Obviously, Jackie Chan, obviously Donnie Yen, even Jet Li back in the days. Um, totally influenced my desire to be a action film fighter, action star. And coming to Hollywood, as we all know, it's been challenging because of, I think I spoke about this in the YouTube podcast, is that it's either you choose acting or you choose film fighting and stunts. And I've been trying to do both. We've all, like a bunch of us have been trying to do both, but I see how it is too. It's an insurance issue. So they have to have an actor and then they have to have a film fighter or stunt person do the recs and the fights because people get severely injured. So most recently, even there was a job I was on recently where they really just did not want the actress to do any of the fighting because they needed it to go by faster, but they also were concerned about the stunt people getting punched in the nose. Um, so that happens. And I mean, there's, obviously Eric and a bunch of us want to be doing both. We want to be acting and doing these stunts just like Donnie Yen or just like Jet Li or just like Jackie Chan did.
That's a really interesting point you just made, and it's something that I think a lot of stunt performers struggle with, which is why can't I just do it like in Hong Kong? And
Yeah.
you could, you could go to Hong Kong. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not
Cynthia
go there.
Rothrock.
Yeah, you could do it like that.
Did she have a double? Like, oh yeah, she did. She had
For
some of
some,
those guys,
for some things, yeah, yeah, you doubled her,
the
some,
big Rex, the big
yeah, for
Rex.
the big Rex, yeah. But I mean, I don't think she got doubled for fighting.
No.
Even in Millionaires Express, the when Samo stepping side kicks her, that's
Yeah.
her taking the impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's so okay. That's one way to do it, and you could do that. Now,
Yeah.
when you
It's
come,
rough though.
it's rough, but then
Yeah.
you get that beautiful thing. Um, if you want to have a cushy Hollywood job and you want to work in the system, now there's a different incentive process. Right? Now there's insurance. Now there's big studio money. Now there's all these other
Yeah.
things that are sort of like stacked up and create this new incentive, a new business model that basically says, like you just said, either you're an actor or you're a stunt woman. Which
It
one
just
are you?
seems like it's hard. Yeah. And it's funny because uh, I've been doing stunts 20 years now in SAG-AFTRA, and all I wanted ever was to be like a female Jackie Chan. Right now, 20 years later, I do not want to do, just like Donnie Yen, I do not want to do those crazy wrecks. I do not want to do car hits. I've done my last car hit 3 years ago. I'm done with that. I don't want to. I don't do wall flips anymore, and I don't do crazy like cement wrecks. So I'm very careful because longevity is important to me. So it would be a dream if I could hire one of my younger Asian friends to double me at this point. However,
And it makes sense because you're
I will take it.
you're approaching 30. I don't know. You're
Yeah,
still, you're getting up there. So
18 to 35 in
yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah. So
So, but like this last job is like, the actress that I met there, she really wants to be an action star. And so she's beginning to learn some wushu straight sword, which is amazing. And she's really good. She's Chinese too, Chinese American. She's really good. She's starting to be really good. She's learning from a legit Hollywood stuntman, and she's learning about fighting. And when I teach her, she learns really fast. So it's just a matter of time when she's going to be doing more of her fights. It's just the amount of time we had with her. We didn't have enough time. And so that's why they had me do all the fights. So in essence, it was really epic to be like the number one for that day, being shot doing all the fights like an action actress, although all the tight shots were her face. So it's close to what I want. I always was like aiming for, that it was mostly me fighting all day. Um, However, what I'm so grateful is that two Asian women were employed that day, me and this actress. So that's beautiful too. Would it save them time and money to have just one person? Absolutely. But I see the purpose of creating a character with two Asian women.
yeah,
It's a lot of work to do all that acting too. She did a lot of acting and to do all the stunts. So,
yeah. Not an easy job.
and
I
I
think
think because with the turnaround too, right? In Hong Kong, they gave you more time. Like Cynthia Roth talks about this on her YouTube channel, that in America, she came to America and everything was like, go, go, go. There was no time to plot out these things. So things would just be shot wide sometimes, or shaky cam or whatever. But in Hong Kong films, they took the time to really work through everything with her, and you had days to rehearse with people. So that's what was cool about Brother Son too, without revealing any story plot. There were many days to work on fights, to change them, for things to be plot out, for things to be shot in previs, changed around in previs many times, add special effects, and then finally shoot it. I hope there are more jobs like that, because that team, they worked so hard, and their art actually was able to be translated into the final product, which hopefully we'll see soon. That's what's missing, is I think just budget and time,
yeah.
in America.
Do
So
you, do you
I
think
have
it's
to quick pee.
okay?
Okay, hold on, everybody. You guys
we'll
talk.
we'll I'll do a solo session here with everybody. Um, the what I think personally is that a film like Furies is going to be very difficult to do in America. In America, a you have two options, right? You sort of have the standard coverage system, uh, where you have your actress, and then you have your stunt double, and you sort of shoot around it, right? On the other hand, you have the John Wick model, Chad Stahelski's model, which is keep the actor in the center, and your actor is doing the action, right? Or your actress. Halle Berry, John Wick 3, right? And the way that that in John Wick that you can accomplish something like that is by tailoring the action to that shooting style, so that you can keep your actor in the center, and or your actress, and they are still doing the thing that they're supposedly doing, but the danger is low enough where the insurance company is not going to come in and say, hey, we want you to use a double for this, right? So in John Wick, there's a lot of grabbing, right? There's not as much striking. There's less chance of injury, and you can obviously, you have someone like Keanu Reeves, who's been doing jiu-jitsu for so long, and he's been an action star. He's been an action star for 30 years. It's like he's got a lot of fights under his belt. He's more of an action star than any of us are. And then in that model, this is a very smart way to keep your actor in the center, which is a great shooting style. It allows you to really believe that the actor is doing everything. But I think that something like Furies is very difficult to do in America, or something like a
Very
Hong Kong
difficult.
film. Yeah, like a Hong
Oh
Kong
my
film with
God.
a female-led Hong Kong film. It's very difficult to do that style. You need a lot of time, which you don't have. You need there's a lot of danger, there's a lot of risk. You don't have that, right? It's going to be very different. So if you want to do that kind of film, you have to go overseas for the most part, or do it indie and kind of risk whatever that whatever those risks are.
Well, see that's the thing. After I saw Furies, I it gave me a thought because Netflix seems to be reaching out. They're the ones who reached out to that production, right? And funded, I think, funded Furies, or either that or it was made and it was picked up. I'm not sure. I need to read up about it. But if Netflix is reaching out like this and looking for, indie, it was so indie looking, then there's no reason that they can't look at Contour and be like, Eric Jacobus, make us a movie. Because, and this is the immediately, even William and I were sitting there watching this, and I was like, dude, Netflix just needs to look at Eric's stuff and they would probably want you to make something that dope and they would believe it. But that's if you want to. And if you did, I would be there supporting in whatever I'd want to be involved.
Oh, thanks.
You know what I mean? I thought about this.
Yeah, thanks.
Are you done making films though?
No. Far
You're
from
not?
it.
Okay,
No,
good.
no,
Okay, good.
no way.
Oh, then that warms my heart.
No, no,
Because
no.
if nobody ever knew, like in indie filmmaking, Eric Jacobus is by far one of the biggest influences that I have. Um, I I I am the female version of whatever I try to emulate, the action comedy thing and the sloppiness. And obviously I don't have as much TKD training as he does, but his action comedy style and, you know, delivery of the realness of it and being sloppy but dynamic and believable and not so stiff is something I've always watched and wanted to be like, you
Thank
know.
you.
I had
Female version of me sounds terrifying, but
I know, sorry.
You put it
Sorry,
that
no
way.
facial hair.
Okay, all right. Well,
No
then
facial
I
hair.
could
No
believe
facial
it.
hair.
Yeah, I could
But
believe it then.
I did forever, like, and I still to this day still want to fight you in something. And you said you would after you saw me in Dragon Lady. And I was like so excited when you reposted Dragon Lady and you said this is like one of the best, like one of the most dynamic female fight, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, Eric Jacobus. So I still do want to fight you someday. I'm not gonna do my own Rex. I'll take reactions and hits.
I'll double
You
you.
can kick me.
I'll
I'll
double
put
you for your
pads on.
Rex.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
great.
don't
Just
worry, I got you
shave
covered.
your beard.
Yeah.
Shave your beard.
Yeah. We'll do it. We'll do it. Hong Kong style. Just put I'll just kind of like move it so that the camera can't see it.
Back of the head. Back of the head.
Back of the head.
But yes, you definitely inspired me. I never told you to be that, and Sean Charney obviously inspired me too. But he's behind the camera with me making the choreo too. So there's that.
Talk about. I was gonna go ahead and finish your thought.
I don't know. I forget now.
Okay.
I was gonna talk about Vlad.
Go ahead and talk about Vlad.
So Vlad, he's so intense. He's so amazing. And I was watching Dragon Lady again because I just put together a cosplay fight reel for Anime Expo that's coming up on Sunday. Me, Sean, William, Spencer, and Jeff Centauri and Tatiana are going to be talking in how to make anime films, I guess, panel that Sean invited me to talk on. So it's going to be a quick 90-minute, that's so short to talk about this topic, 90 minutes live at Anime Expo. So I cut a reel and I put Dragon Lady back on there. And I was thinking about that. That is exactly, to me, that's still to this day, because people ask me, what is the most amazing fight you've ever done? And still to this day, I consider that one. Even though I did crazier wrecks in other things in Hollywood because that's what they ask for. Like, if you can wreck, you're going to work. So like for Lucifer, when I worked with Vlad again, I did the 3/4 to the cement, but took a bunch of flatbacks before that. And the wrecks in Dragon Lady were more so for Brendan, because I think at the time Brendan hadn't been seen doing a lot of wrecks. So Vlad wanted to make karate versus kung fu and show Brendan taking wrecks. Even though I was willing to wreck. However, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it's just a random, just thinking about him as a film. What I love about Vlad is he was open for collaboration. He had an idea. He was open for the collaboration of my character, because I wanted my character to be somebody who also was sometimes feminine, and so that's why at the end of Dragon Lady you see me with a pretty cheongsam dress and a fan, because the idea was she's supposed to take different forms. And Vlad had an idea that in another one, I would be in a different form, wearing all white, fighting these guys. So I wanted to talk Chinese in it too, and Brendan speaks Chinese, so he helped me with some of the ideas of the lines, and he also spoke to me back in Chinese, and that was what was cool too, is Vlad allowing those moments of the acting for me to say my lines, and both Brendan and I were clearly seeing a lot and taking all the hits. I got kicked by Brendan so hard. I had a pad, but it hurt. So the yell that you hear me yelling in there is a real reaction, which is crazy because sometimes when you really do I've been kicked by Jerry Quill before for something for Brian Sloyer, and that kick didn't look as real because it was a real kick and I didn't animate my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that too, right?
Sometimes the real hits are internal
Yeah,
injuries that nobody can see, and
they don't look, it
they
doesn't
kill
look
you
good.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah, they kill you so bad that you don't even react and do the animation, and then it doesn't look that strong anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was off on a tangent, but
No,
you were saying.
it's interesting because you're talking about femininity in that film, and I find that there's a lot there. I don't know if this is a trend. Maybe this has always been the case. I'm not sure. But there seems to be this default when it comes to doing action scenes that when a female comes on camera, um, it's almost like the default is like, well, let's just choreograph as if she's a male. Let's just do that. And
Mm,
if she's you were talking about these very slender women who fight as if they are buff women or buff men, right?
yeah,
Gina Carano is going to fight very differently than Charlize Theron because
absolutely.
they have a different incentive, right? You can't throw Gina Carano as easily as you can Charlize Theron. There's a different
True.
incentive, right? And so when and that was one of the things that I liked about the short was that, okay, I'm looking at somebody who's moving and acting in a way that actually makes sense based on who they are, right? So
Mm,
if you are a female and you are feminine, if you have a way of moving that exhibits that, then it's like it exists there. But if you start moving like you're you know, like a 6'1" karate guy from Japan, well then suddenly like well, the two things aren't they're not
right.
meshing. It's kind of like me choreographing myself as if I'm like a sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense. So is that something that did you bring that to the film?
That to Dragon Lady? No, dude, that's a good question because so this was also a struggle within breaking too, because breakdancing was always dominated by men, and a lot of the teachers besides Bigo Rockefeller in New York City, who was very feminine, she was one of my first teachers. She also could move like a man. And so a lot of the attitude was very masculine, right? And it wasn't until, so I started breaking in 1998, more so 2000 in New York. And it wasn't, I would say, admittedly, until 2005, because I spent so much time. Remember, I told you that people were like, you need to learn your foundation. So, foundation is like Ken Swift and like all the b-boys from Rocksteady Crew and all those guys are very masculine. They move masculine. They were watching, you know, um, all the kung fu flicks that were ripped off of Johnny Gasca back in the day, and they were learning some of the moves from that to put into their own style. So I was trying to emulate them, and that's very masculine. But learning that foundation by about 2005, then I was ready to be more feminine, even dress more feminine, and sometimes throw in a hip, sometimes throw in an attitude, but still stay grounded to the foundation of being masculine and aggressive. So I feel that Dragon Lady was that for me too. She was dressed as a Chinese communist soldier in that scene, and so it called to be very masculine. Yet the things that she said, the moments when, she would be like, oh, you would dare to hit a female, would you? Like that's where her feminine would come out. And then she's kind of drunk too, so she would taunt him. So those are a little bit of feminine moments, but I would say generally a lot of it was pretty masculine, except for yeah, it was pretty masculine and aggressive. So I didn't really, and then I think that's why I asked Vlad, I'm like, hey, can we show Bailan at the end, like in a beautiful cheongsam with a fan? And he was down for that to show like the mystical, mysticism of it. Um, yeah, the whole feminine thing. So in Furies, I was like, man, this is secretly on the DL. This is a dream job I would love to do, a dream fight. I'll have someone stunt double me if I ever get wrecked into the wall, like a couple of them did. But they it was badass. The middle fight scene when they're in a club and they're dressed up super sexy. I'm down. I am down. I've paid my dues dressing up masculine that I'm down to wear like sexy outfit and fight. The heels thing though is like it's rough though, because even in the most recent thing I did, we used without saying the name, we used the heels as a fight object instead of me wearing them, but I still had to fight in them. And it's just gnarly being in stilettos, trying to throw kicks and move around, but it's doable, but I don't feel as grounded for sure. So I think even in Fury, she takes her shoes off and like one of them uses it to like stiletto the guy. But yeah, it's just cool. There's moments where they square off and they're like, I'm like, oh, that's so sexy. So good.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
it's a balance. I think that's what's cool about being a girl is you don't have to be masculine the whole time and you don't have to be feminine the whole time. You can mix, flop between the two,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
find that balance. I don't honestly, I don't think it's as enjoyable if you're only doing feminine and only doing masculine. I think that's what's cool about those girls is they were both, at times. One of the characters was kind of cute. She had her hair in buns and she would like, and like her smiles and
Mm. Yeah, like
we love that.
you look at like Moon Lee, it's a perfect
Yeah,
example, and like Michelle
perfect
Yeoh.
example.
Michelle Yeoh also, I mean, female action star of
Greatest.
all time. Just it's like effortless, and
Yeah.
you kind of get that impression that she's not trying to be anything except exactly who she appears to be, and it totally
Yeah, she's
works.
so good. She's so good as Kuan Yin in ABC. If you guys haven't seen that, I loved her. She really has that essence of Kuan Yin. It's really amazing. Um, but yeah, Zhang Ziyi, that was all feminine to me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a ballerina dancer, and they taught her wushu style fighting, and she was very feminine style dancing. I can't remember if there was a moment where she was masculine in that Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
Have to watch it again, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that would be like, would it be so cool to see her fight masculine? That would be awesome. I'm always wondering that when I see a female fight so femininely, like, oh, can they get down and raw brawl?
It's interesting.
You know?
You're talking about you're talking about you can be fight masculine or feminine. I think of it more in terms of um, fighting offensively and being vulnerable. And
Mm,
I think that I think men and women have very different ways of being vulnerable, and like the modes of it are very different. And a lot of what whenever I fall back on being vulnerable, I tend to fall back on comedy. And for
yeah.
me, that's kind of easy because I can diffuse. I can diffuse very easily with comedy. All my family, well, on my mother's side, they're all kind of comedians. They're all kind of jokesters, and so I grew up around that, where
No wonder.
if a fight started coming up, my mom is funny. She's like legitimately
My
funny,
mom is funny.
and my
My
aunt
mom is
and
funny.
her sister was funny. Her brothers are funny because they grew up in a hellish household.
Oh, wow.
They have a lot to maybe it's a coping mechanism, but it's also like a processing where like you process the world around you like this is hilarious because I've been through hell and this ain't that. So like, what are you gonna do? You know, like put me back, back there? No, this is funny. So yeah, I think that I, this also gets to like women in comedy, where I think that the funniest female comedians are the ones who are like openly vulnerable and the ones okay with being vulnerable, right? Those are the funniest
Yeah,
ones. And again,
Ali Wong.
yeah, Ali Wong and like Amy Schumer early on was like, I thought that she had the funniest show early on, like first two
Yeah,
seasons, because it was vulnerable. Like you could
yeah,
tell that this person was admitting to like having relationship hangups and all this, and the
yeah.
vulnerability is what sold it. And uh, and I think that that's what makes that makes good comedy, but also it makes great femininity. It makes great emotive men. Also, like I've heard you know, journalists and various people talk about John Wick because like they say that he's kind of a vulnerable character, and I think that's what people like about the character is that
Yeah,
he's kind of emotionally driven.
he's thinking about his dead wife.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and he's got a dead dog, right? So
yeah. That was the first one. I was like, "Oh, hi, you want to talk too? Come on." I think he wants to
talking
talk.
about vulnerability, uh, there's a vulnerable looking dog right there.
Falcor.
Um, let's see, we have let's see, we had a comment from Lance. Hey, Lance, how you doing, man? He's a local.
Is that your friend?
Yeah,
Oh.
he helped me do train Spear for God of War Ragnarok, and he's the local North
Mm.
Shaolin practitioner in Vegas. So he says it's always easier to turn a martial artist into an actor instead of an actor to become a martial artist. What do you think about that statement?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's funny because you keep bringing up the whole dancing thing. So, to with my experience from training different actors and even stunt people, just straight up, I've really enjoyed training the dancer, like especially B-boys or B-girls. Um, Not very many B-girls. I've straight up enjoyed training those number one, and then the martial artists, and then the actors, or the actors with dance experience and martial arts experience. The dancing thing, I don't know, it's something about, I think in dance, because there's so much freestyle and so much liberty for expression and letting go and letting loose, a lot of that translates well with film fighting, so that it's not so like one, two, three. Two, and straight up, we've talked about this before, the gymnasts are the hardest. That's going to take some time, and I did have gymnastics in my background, but that was the first thing I did before judo, before breakdancing, capoeira, swing dancing, stunts, wushu even. So yeah, martial definitely is easier to train a martial artist. Depends what kind of style, just like you've experienced. Um, Definitely, I think wushu can help with with it, but they definitely have to get out of going from straight wushu to raw brawl is not easy transition, but it can happen. And any of them going from karate, TKD to, it's funny because I'm training my niece and nephew now, and they've been doing karate and TKD, and they did jujitsu when they were younger, but because they've been watching it a lot, and I've been teaching them from the get-go, the in-betweens, the animation, and the kids pick it up really fast if you start training them with the acting now. So my nephew made his debut. It's an elf fight I did over Christmas, and he did really well. It was his first film fight. I pushed him hard. There was crying going on. My niece was almost in it. She got cut from the scene because it was too much for her. My nephew was 10 at the time, and they know a lot of, not a lot, but they knew enough forms in karate. So it was really interesting to basically not teach them so much the forms in the karate, but the in between, it's basically training an actor from coming from a martial arts background, the acting. And what are you doing? What are you doing when you're standing there? When you got hit, you're not just gonna like take the reaction and stand up and go. Like, did it hurt you? Um, so yeah, it's trainable for sure. It's definitely then sometimes actors are easier too because some actors are really like, Jimmy O Yang. I watched him fight and I watched Ronnie Chang fight, and they're amazing, amazing. And same with Jenny Yang, she's amazing. So
Yeah,
there's some actors who can pick it up really, really quickly. And if they have dance background, even better.
I think that the curve. I think on average, I agree with Lance. I think on average, yes, you're much better off as a martial
Yes.
artist becoming an actor. However, the actors who are able to pick up screen fighting, I think far out exceed the abilities of martial artists who become actors, because
I see what you're
they,
saying.
I mean, I still to this day kind of envy.
Amit Singh is a Norwegian professional footballer. Hilarious.
It's doing
Wait, can you hear me?
it's doing research for us
Okay.
right now.
No, yeah, Siri started activating.
Um,
Hilarious.
Sometimes like their reactions are just they don't feel canned. Like they feel like they're there, and there is something about
Yeah,
that method that I think that, and this is, I always ask people too, like what can stunt performers learn from actors and vice versa.
yeah,
I think that we have a lot to learn from actors.
definitely.
But so yeah, I think that the curve on average is correct, but then like the freaks like Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves, these are freaks who are great actors who, when they move, and Takeshi Kitano's another one. He's an actor who just knows how to be there and move, and you buy it.
Yeah,
You buy everything.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like you asked me some of the previous thing too. The few, the last, the last four actors that I worked with, they were really good at this. So I feel that as far as like once they learn the choreo, and then when it comes to the day when you're shooting, they can take directions so well with the acting and the intent behind it. So, there was like we got two takes. One is like she's just punching, just on top of someone punching. And I was like, okay, that's great. That's a good take. Let's do another one where you're doing it even slower. So each punch, you want to kill them with each of those punch instead of punch, punch, punch. And she understood right away. Once I gave her that correction or that tip, she was able to lock into that right away, you know?
I think that is
So
the winning formula that, or it's a winning
yeah.
formula that Chad and '87 have kind of perfected, is taking the actor and taking an actor who can do that stuff,
Hmm.
train, and then investing in that actor. And that was the Toei, film studio model as well. It's like get your main actor, design action around that actor, so that you can just look at the actor doing movement. And
Yeah.
when you find
And
that actor, you invest in them.
yeah, and on even like the Audible thing. So, like for indie filmmaking, we're like anytime a new person comes in that we are training, because we're always Sean and I are always trying to help new stunt people. He more so, but sometimes I'm involved with it and I'll want to help somebody, or a girl comes and she's like, I want to do a fight. And so when we train people, that's a lot of it is like these new stunt people sometimes don't know to make audibles. And audible for their partner, audible for themselves, so it doesn't look like they're holding their breaths. The actors never have a problem with that. Never. Every time I'm like, you're out here and you're like, ah! And they have no problem like emulating any of those. And I think that's one thing that sets aside the actor with a maybe just a stunt person or a gymnast or a dancer, you know.
I'll say this: that one of my pet peeves, and maybe this is just me being too Aspergery, but when stunt performers, when we're fighting, is the audibles that are timed with the movements. So it's ha ta 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 ta, and it's timed exactly. Uh, that's something I think, even in editing, I would recommend, if that happens, like just shift the voices over a little bit, because it says to the audience that they've memorized what they're doing.
Choreo.
Yeah, they've memorized the
Right.
choreo. Whereas an actor who, and by the way, like it's hard not to do that. In fact, that's, you
Yeah.
look at Hong Kong style sound design, they dub everything in. If
Yeah.
you watch that's how they do it when they're fighting.
Yeah.
That. But when you leave that sound in, it just sounds canned. Uh,
Like they choreographed it.
yeah. So yeah, that's something. Yeah, I agree.
Do you
Actually,
do that for your when you edit? When you edited your fights, you shifted all the audio?
no, I'm very conscious of the sounds that I make when I fight.
That's
I
awesome.
think I subconsciously time my audibles a little bit differently. I tend not to do it during the attack. I tend to
Hmm.
do it like after the attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, just subconscious. But I mean, it's also just a sound mixing thing. where if you have a sound
Yeah.
effect, you can't, if you're doing a Hong Kong movie and you're doing sound design on it, you've got your sound effects. Well, you're not going to put the hut, 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 hut on top of every
Yeah.
sound effect. You're going to shift it all
True.
because it's just a better sound. Otherwise, it just drowns everything else out.
Yeah.
It'll compress everything down, right? So they offset them. So if you listen to Samo's fight sounds, he has some of the best ones. And it's like such a weird thing to think about this, but like go and
I'm
listen.
gonna go listen
Go
now. This
listen
is
to
so
a Sammo
awesome.
Hung fight. Like don't even watch it. Just put the headphones on. Listen to Pedicab Driver. Listen to
Mm,
that and listen to how the audio comes
the cadence.
after the audio the fight sound comes before the voice. So it's ah,
Yeah.
it's this nice layer and it doesn't feel
I gotta
staged.
listen. Wow, you're amazing. I gotta listen. So, like in stunts, obviously, for safety of the actors and the performers, we telegraph the sound so that they know.
Yeah.
Or even if it's like there's no contact, we're like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for the actor
Yeah.
to know to react or the stunt person. And that's part of like that, even that's hard sometimes to train actors and some people to do, or not some people, the fighters know, but sometimes the actor doesn't know to do that. So they'll just throw the, and then I'm like, you got to give them audio so they know when to react to, because sometimes it's behind the back too, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, but
but yeah, that's
you can always
awesome.
just shift. I mean, I kind of discovered that when I was just sound mixing, and if I had music,
Yeah.
if you had music, and I'm doing a sound effect track, and I have the audio track, and I have
Hmm.
you'd have the voice and the sound effect stacked, and then that causes the music to just dip, and
Yeah. Yeah.
my
I know what you're
composer,
talking
yeah,
about.
my composer would be like, all right, well, I have to kind of pick music and I would come back and I would say, well, can you make the music like up higher? He's like, yeah, but then I gotta compress the sound effects down, so we can never find like a happy medium.
Right. A happy medium.
Yeah, and so Hong Kong fights solved this problem. First of all, they don't have music during their fights. That's another thing people don't realize.
Right.
There's no music during Hong Kong fights. It's only like in the intermediate stages and sort of like designates that we're moving into Act Two of the fight, and then we're moving into Act Three of the
Hmm.
fight. And yeah, then the other part is that they don't stack them; they offset them a little bit. It's just a nicer texture.
Awesome. It
Uh,
gets cold every day. I don't know when I'm editing next, but the next thing I edit, I'm like taking a break from editing. It's a lot. Filmmaking is a lot, you know.
well, let's
You
end
have to
on.
like take
I
breaks.
want to talk just real quick about you as a filmmaker. And when did you get the filmmaking bug? Because let's give some context too. You
Yeah.
direct and you edit and you write and you perform. It's a lot of hats to wear and you choreograph. So at what was the order of events? Did you want to make films first and then perform? Was it which way did it go?
Oh, that's a good question. So when I was 16 with my gymnastic team was the first film I made with high eight, the little high eight tapes, and in the 90s. And it was called The Executioner, and I was the executioner. Why? I don't know. I just thought it was fun. I had my sister be the camera, the camera operator, but she also was ADing me and saying action. And I was already doing in edits, where you put the high eight onto the VHS, and I was doing the edits onto that. I wanted to, I think mostly I just enjoyed the process of doing something with my best friends who were down to like do stair falls and just, I don't know, they just all looked up to me as a storyteller, maybe because of how our development of your friendship with gymnastics teams, you're around them for 4 hours a day, sometimes more. And so when I had a sleepover, I'd always make them do stuff. And the executioner is the one, probably the latest one. I have to find it. It's basically one by one. I killed all of them would come up the stairs. I had like Steve Urkel was one of the characters, and Lady Jane who ruled England for 16 days. Like just random, I don't know. I just liked having random stuff. Steve Urkel came with pants pulled up, glasses, like, hi, I'm Steve Urkel. And I think I let him live, but most of them I killed. I even like, set up like a volleyball. And I just thought it was so fun to do, so fun to make this with your best friends and then show it the next morning over donuts with and show my parents this is what we were doing all night, yelling. That's when I first I think, I mean, before that, me and my sister were definitely making dumb little ones. Like we had the Magic Bean, we had Wonder Woman things, back in the Super 8 days. That tells you how old I am. But yeah, the first film I actually finished was like The Executioner. And then after that, there was a big break. So college happened, high school or whatever. And even in high school, I would make some funny things about, I don't know, Chinese history. But then coming to Hollywood, I think after being a 3D animator, VFX pre-visualization artist, and working with Gore Verbinski and specifically him, Sam Raimi from Spider-Man 3, Gore Verbinski on Pirates 1, 2, and 3, and Steven Summers of Van Helsing. Those are my top three directors that I worked with during the time I was a previs VFX artist because of their how funny they were and the storytellers. They're such good storytellers. Like they would come into the room and we'd have a meeting and they'd describe the scene. And I just like look at them like that is what I want to do is like tell the story in a funny way like that. So then, I learned a lot about cinematography, animating and setting up all the cameras and the character animations. And, after a while you get so tired. So I never had time to do my own projects. But once I made that transition of doing stunts and doing commercials. Then I start and working with Real Kick. I was like, oh, I want to do a film. I want to do a short film. And Matrix Revelations was my first one. It's terrible. I don't even want to show you, but maybe no. You know what? I'll show it to you because I did the VFX for it. I made Matrix, rain happen. I me versus Tim Storm, and I multiplied Tim Storm, so there was like me versus 8 of Tim Storms. Um, and I think just I love movies so much that I is just like, how could you not want to make your own versions of what's in your head? So I'm even though I'm taking a break from it right now because you get burnt out. Like the last thing that I edited hardcore was the Back to the Future film, fan film that I'm doing with William, because it was my dream when I met him for him to be Marty McFly, but his own version of Marty McFly. And so we started shooting that. We shot a fight. We shot him doing the trick for real because in the movie he doesn't do it. And I always wanted to. I don't know. I think it's kind of like a muse. I get inspired by muses. So like William inspired me as a muse, and I wanted to see him. I love cosplay. I wanted to see him as Marty, but I wanted to see him as his version of Marty doing more dynamic, acrobatic parkour style tricks as Marty, because we all love Back to the Future and Marty. And so that's what inspired me to do that too. And then also like with him because he's so funny. William Spencer is also a comedy action guy, and to create things with people who are funny too and are storytellers is like it's like epic. It's the best form of like creating love. And then pulling your friends on and just watching it afterwards and the funny different ideas because the sky's the limit. There's no rules when you're a filmmaker. You can tell your own version of the story. So yeah, in between my stunt career and whenever I do have time, I do love making films. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Rumble Date, that was the other film that I got into the film festival last year, but it's so much work, so much editing, so much color correcting, sound design, and still I have this kitchen fight I shot 3 years ago during COVID that is probably the most I think you're gonna like it, Eric, because it's action comedy, but it's the most stuff in the kitchen um that me, Sean, and William just hacked it out, and it's stylistic, it's funny. There's acting beats that I'm really excited to show, and that's you have it's our blessing and it's our curse to have this burning desire to get what's inside our brain out to show people and make people laugh or be inspired. Desire to inspire means the world to me when someone's like, "Hey, I saw your yoga pant brawl, and now I'm making short films too,"
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell the younger generation, try and find a way to be hungry. Try and find a way to tell a story, because it's probably, I don't know if it's more difficult now to get inspired to make films, um, but that hunger to make a story and shoot something, get your friends together, it helps you think about action in like 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, really, right? Because you're thinking of it in terms of time. You're designing action for the edit in your head. It makes you totally think differently, and
Yes.
and it's really good training. So even if as a performer, even if you're thinking, well, I just want to be a stunt performer, it's like you should make a movie. You should make a
Dude,
short film.
it's so important as a performer, I feel, to know shot composition, to know editing, especially, and even sound design. But being an editor, because I edited dance videos for a long time. The whole time I was editing previs action sequences, and just being a previs action sequence editor, animator really helped me animate my own body as well and understand how things flow together and understand, jumping the line or just making smoother transitions between the shots, because people all the time want to just shoot shit, and it's not that easy. It's just not. Another part of the hunger that inspired me was working as a professional stunt woman, stunt double in Hollywood, because so many projects we do, we never even, sometimes we don't get to see it. Sometimes a lot of the fights we make up are cut out or cut short, or you don't see it the way that it was choreographed. That's what drives me to want to make my own stuff still to this day.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's another huge reason. All
yeah,
the time. There's so many. The reel that I just cut, there's no clips from the industry. And because I wanted to show, because I'm going to do a panel discussion on anime filmmaking for people who are working on a budget and they just have an iPhone or a camera, I wanted to show the things that I made with my friends, because those are the things that I'm the most proud of, because you can actually see the work and actually see the choreography.
yeah.
Whereas it's very hard. It's very hard to, yeah, like I said, the Lucifer thing with Vlad, it was an awesome previs. It was just so dark you couldn't even see the action. It was shot different because Vlad didn't get to hold the camera.
Yeah.
If he got to hold the camera, it would be a different story.
Yeah. Story of our
So I
lives.
wonder, yeah, I would love to see the BTS of Furies. I'm sure you would too, just to see the camera guy
Yeah.
moving around and how
Yeah.
they designed it. I
Yeah.
would love to see the previs.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I don't know. Have
Yeah.
you seen it yet?
I
Or you've
haven't. No,
just
I
seen?
haven't seen it. I know enough about it. That I get it. I see the
Yeah,
appeal.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I really hope Contour gets picked up by Netflix. Are you pitching it?
I mean, it has. I think we have it. Just I don't know. I don't even know what the legal situation or the rights situation is with it. It's such an old movie. Oh my gosh, it's a
Yeah, but the
18 year
trailer, I
old
haven't
movie.
seen. I'm gonna see it once because you gave me a link, but the trailer, dude, I'm like, you guys were doing this way before any of these kids are doing it. If you guys who are film fighters out there, or camera operators or action designers or action filmmakers, you guys need to see Eric Jacobus's work, all of it, but also the trailer of Contour and all his older stuff, because it's just so impressive that you were doing this so long ago and good.
Thank you. But it
There's
was
really watching.
that was that time when the stunt people had we had quite a team.
Yeah,
We had quite a team, and especially when we teamed up with the Bay Area folks. Then that just took us to another level. So
so much work. I see so much work in all
oh,
your
thank you.
shorts. You've done so much. It's crazy. It's crazy. And which is why I'm like, I really hope you get a movie on this. You take just a little break, you get an Eric Jacobus movie, whatever, and I will be there. I'll drop whatever I'm doing to help you and be in it, whatever, help you in any way.
We'll call it Dirty
Because
Fighter.
just something, yeah, dirty fighter, sloppy, dirty fighter.
Sloppy Joe. We'll call it Sloppy Joe.
Sloppy.
Um, Pepe, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you all for joining the chat. And
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, and check out Pepe's channel also. I'll drop it in the link in the description. And keep your eye out for her on camera because she's big time. So
You won't see my face lately, though. It's okay. You'll see my body moving. Sometimes my face.
All right, thanks, Pepe.
in my own productions. Thank you guys. Thank you, Eric.